Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda.
Good morning once again, and of course it is another opportunity, what we call a day for us to do Start It With You. Of course we believe it is a blessed one. Now being Tuesday, getting into midweek. Now Priscilla normally says that we slice the week and all these things. I don't know what she'll say about Tuesday, today being Tuesday actually. Now guess what, it is also a new month. We are already mid-year, 2021, 1st of June. What a year. What a day the Lord has made. There's so ish 2020 and now 2021. Good morning, Robert.
Good morning to you, Felix, and of course a lovely morning to everyone that is watching UBC TV. Yes, it is a Tuesday and things are funny. Last time when we were media, of course that was 2020, it was COVID-19. Around April there, Ugandans were like, okay, I think we are moving away from this thing and life is getting back to normal. Very shocking. Now we are at it again as we come to the mid of the year. Again, it seems COVID is around and the second wave is here. I was looking at how it is affecting the education institutions in this country, and some even choosing to suspend teaching. So that means, yes, it is real, it is there, and 2020, the effects are also coming in. Here in Uganda, we are also seeing the very same thing, the situation. As we wait for, it is going to be tomorrow when the COVID-19 task force is going to be meeting, and thereafter we don't know if they'll come up with do's and don'ts. Will they take us back to a similar situation in 2020, or is it going to be any different this time? Not forgetting, Priscilla, that there are still some sectors that are still even closed from the first wave, and here we are in the second wave.
Well, allow me to say good morning to you, Uganda. Thank you so much for joining us here for yet another edition of Good Morning Uganda. It is the 152nd day of the year, leaving you with only 213 days to go. Now do the math and then go back to your drawing board and find out where you plan to be in this month of June as we get into the first day of June 2021. Welcome aboard the middle of the year, and this should be a good time for you to, as Felix said, slice the cake of your life, your achievements, your visions, your goals, and find out where you are. But as you're coming on board with us on Good Morning Uganda, we definitely have a lot packed for you. Of course, we get to look at the stories that made headlines in the last 24 hours, of which you can always catch up with them on our social media platform on Twitter at UBC TV Uganda. Then we will be having a dialogue this morning in our newsreel, and we'll be looking at the agricultural sector and who actually regulates pesticides or all these drugs the agricultural sector does use. Then thereafter, of course, the tabloids. What has made headlines? A picture of COVID-19 people that had gone to Kororo grounds for vaccine.
They were not so much taken up, but with the coming of the second wave, they have, and already in Hoima, the vaccines are done. In Hoima district, the vaccines are done, but we hope we shall have more coming to the country.
Well, we definitely will. Traffic updates will also be coming your way at 7:30, and thereafter we'll be having Molin Kenyana on weather to let us know what the climate is like today. And Good Morning Uganda agenda also has something special designed for you this morning to digest on. All these, we will be ending it with the world of sports, and Ruben P. Matibirango will be telling us about Vipers and what has just recently happened in their camp, but also a developing story for SC Villa. They've not been paid for the 18 months. Now what next for the team that decided to have a boycott and sit down ahead of the Uganda Cup? All these conversations we're going to be having this morning. But do follow us on YouTube, UBC Television Uganda, then also on Facebook, which is UBC TV, to catch up with all these stories.
Well, I've been thinking this morning, and I was trying to remember in our primary schools, we used to have houses. And probably every house used to have a representation.
You used to have houses, or you used to sleep in houses?
No, houses.
What do you mean houses?
Where did you guys study again?
Eh?
Zebra, tiger.
You mean clubs? Okay, all right.
Clubs?
Continue.
Clubs?
They're called houses.
It was clubs.
For you, it was clubs.
Yeah.
Well, also used to refer to them as houses.
Yeah.
Which house are you in?
And every house used to have in primary and what the motto was. Robert, do you remember?
I remember my house, that was Cobb, and but I don't remember if our motto. I just remember Cobb meant yellow, red was for Impala, then Ron was for blue, but I don't remember the
In
motto.
short, you don't remember the tagline for your house. Okay, all right.
For primary.
Neither do I remember. I just remember
that you are in which?
the houses, right? Clubs. For me, it was clubs. Yes, I remember in primary, I was in the Elephant Club, which was a purple-shirted club. And then equally in high school, I was in still purple-shirted, but this time it was a lion. So,
well,
dominancy and also territory.
I was in zebra. Now, first they used to relate them to the demeanor of the animal. They would probably, if you have some people are in lion, they would get like raw, loud, something like that. Zebra, keep calm but focused, something like that. So some of these things used to help us appreciate how we went around things. Even when you're going for drama, like you went for sports and all these things, your tutors would be telling you, like, pick the character of that animal. Now, most recent, I was looking at some schools and I realized schools have what you want to call clubs, or what we used to call houses, of funny things. Okay, I won't say funny, but the names that could be a bit unexplainable. Now, when I went to HSC, rather to high school, I found there were houses of kings' names, like Mutesa. That was one of the houses. Then there was Butler, there was Sentongo. There was no explanation to any of these things. There was no relationship. When you go to some schools I've seen, some of them have continents, Asia, Africa, what and what. But some that's a bit easy to explain. But for example, imagine if you belong to a house called
the schools. By the time have those houses being named after such people or names, they have the meanings or they resonate with something. Probably a founder
which we never get to know.
Which you never get to know.
That's the thing.
My goodness. In my high school, they did a good job every single term of reminding you as to why you are in Hutchinson and you are a Hatchite. So maybe it depends on the school that you went
Hutchinson,
to.
Hatchite.
And usually by then, these names also, schools used to have a lot of competition because in-house competition, for example, I was in a school in HSC where we had Rubambura, we had Mutesa, we had Lumumba. But these would compete because we had playgrounds. But of late, I wonder, people are building schools or hiring buildings, and we had Lumumba, got them. You know, these would, for health purposes, they were very good, but also co-curricular activity. But now a school is licensed and there is nowhere that they're going to have some of these games, sports.
In short, they don't have they don't produce an all-round student at the end of that student being in that school.
It's all about what your neighbor is going to ask. You know, it reminds me of one of my friends here who always
your
says,
mental health
you talk
matters,
about
your physical health also matters, your social health also matters. How do you interact? And sport is the best interaction.
If any of you was privileged to have attended classes like home economics,
I used to fluke those
woodwork, something like that, metalworks. I was privileged that I went to schools where they are actually teaching that, and someone would come, a brother would come to teach woodwork. And trust me, these were the best classes. I would die to be in those classes than even the biology class.
At 3 p.m. every Thursday.
I can imagine the girls went for home economics.
I went and actually learned and explored a lot with home economics to the extent that it actually helped me every time I'd be going back home. I'd be going back home with something new to, try out and practice at home. So those classes were very vital, by the way.
So I can compare a chemistry class to a home economics class, where equations fly all over, QX, QW, Y.
But you see, I remember there was a bit of stigma for boys who used to do home economics.
Oh yeah.
It was always seen like something for the girl child, and yet some boys were really very passionate.
The irony of
that.
it is that men are actually very, very good in home economics.
And
they thrive. Yes, the ones that have gone through those classes have been among the top best.
No, even though, spectrum of 100 chefs in this city, you'll only find maybe 10 women only. So it's a matter of fact that chefs are by far men. It's a men-dominated practice, rather than, yet it should be dominated by women apparently. It's by far dominated. How many chefs that are women you've met?
Me? I have met only 3 actually. I only know of 3 in Uganda.
Can imagine.
Yes, yeah.
And Robert?
And I have a long list of men.
You can imagine,
for
yeah.
chefs.
Men dominate. I don't know, maybe because these hotels choose to take on men, because sometimes they have...
Because they're the ones available.
I don't want to think it's what's available, because when you go to these institutions, you find that either the distribution is fair, or even the girls outcompete the men. But when it comes to employment, it's like the men outcompete the women.
In short, what we are simply trying to say that as an educationist, as a business entity, as you're trying to get into the education sector as a business, please do consider that you must produce an all-round child. And we do recommend that not just cause them to focus on books, but create an environment that actually causes them to respond both physically, emotionally, intellectually, and in all other facets that cause us to be an all-round human being. But also, hallelujah ginger tea drink and also hallelujah tamarind drinks are here for you this morning. You must get yourself boosted in terms of your immunity, and these drinks are the perfect drinks to take in the morning at lukewarm temperature. They will definitely boost your immunity in such a time as this.
And there is one word that I always grew up hearing, which is prevention is better than cure. So better boost your immune system by taking these drinks so that you save on medical bills. You know, medical bills of late, treatment is also becoming very expensive. Yet simple things, simple drinks available on the market, like Hallelujah products, will do you very well. But so much happened yesterday, and we'll be looking at some of the stories that were in our news bulletins, beginning with the COVID-19 vaccination exercise at Kirabo, where hundreds stand up, flock the place to ensure they get either their first jab or second jab. That is a day 1 of mass vaccination at Kirabo Ceremonial Grounds in Kampala. So over 20,000 people received either their first or second jab of COVID-19. The 10-day exercise intended to scale up the country's fight against the deadly COVID-19. The vaccination was to kick off at exactly 9 a.m. and at Kirabo Ceremonial Grounds gates were opened by 6:30. This time not to vaccination. Initially, this was an exercise conducted at the Ministry of Health headquarters, Mulago Hospital, and other spots. But due to increase in numbers, the requirement for social distancing at Kirabo was a better option for mass vaccination, which we saw a number of people get their jabs. Unlike in the past, where the youth have not been at the forefront of the exercise, this time around, many youth showed up for the vaccination. Although the numbers seem to be scaling up on a daily basis, the ministry is convinced that they have the capacity to attend to all. That is expected to round off the vaccination process. That is when the vaccines are set to be expiring.
Away from the vaccination ongoing, even today you can actually go there and get yourself vaccinated. Uganda Airlines has launched commercial operations to Johannesburg, South Africa. The inaugural flight UR710 was flagged off by the head of public service. Alex Mitala flanked the Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Works, and the South African High Commissioner to Uganda. The Johannesburg route is the 10th of the airlines, and the airlines plans to fly to South Africa 4 times a week using a fleet of 4 CRJ900 jetliners from Bombardier.
I'll take a look at education institutions and COVID-19, where the Vice Chancellor, Chambogo University, Professor Erika, Treatment Center for the surging cases of COVID-19. Professor Katunguka made the remarks at a media briefing over the overwhelming COVID-19 cases reported at Chambogo University. This surge has left the university with no option but to put an interim end on physical learning. Due to the increasing number of COVID-19 cases at Chambogo University, the university administration has started tightening the grip on enforcement of COVID-19 measures. the remedies, staying the lives of lecturers at home and also students to ensure they are out of danger. Since the university resumed physical lectures, it has registered over 50 positive COVID-19 cases from students and staff. Dr. Grace Morengerwa is also concerned about the delay in raising COVID-19 results from the central laboratory, leading to surge in numbers. Professor Katunguka said, due to lack of isolation centers, the students and staff that test positive still interact with other students. He, however, appealed for express vaccination of the university staff members.
As the 11th Parliament settles into business, legislators of the 11th Parliament are being inducted on how they expected to conduct Parliament business. The induction was presided over by the Speaker of Parliament, Jacob Olanya. Parliament has started inducting legislators of the 11th Parliament, focusing on the rules of procedure, social etiquette, and their responsibilities. The function presided over by the Speaker Jacob Olanya and Deputy Speaker Anita Among, legislators were urged to argue objectively and ensure an evidence-based debate. Olanya told the 529 members of the 11th Parliament that the majority will be respected. He pledged to work with the Deputy Speaker Anita Among to have harmonious sessions to ease Parliament.
Very interesting, Priscilla. Induction. We hope they all attended, and there is so much that they will learn, because one of the fears of people of the 11th Parliament is one of the fears of people of the 11th Parliament is it is letters there, which, if not properly aware of what they're supposed to do and the rules of procedures, this could cause a bit of uncertainty, and we do not want to see this.
Well, the other hiccup that is present is that because of COVID-19, they must practice social distancing, so they cannot have the entire August House sitting at once. So some have to attend online, while some have to attend in physical presence. Now, that is hard to monitor. How do you monitor that Kirabo has logged on into this parliamentary session and he's ready to, take on the affairs of the day?
The problem of absenteism will not continue.
Will not multiply.
That has been in the 10th Parliament. Lack of quorum, members,
now the excuse is going to be internet, data, network, and then they will ask for billions of money to just provide data.
But the good thing is they're given iPads and all this.
No, but they record those iPads for the 10th Parliament.
The new intake has to have them.
Following those updates as and when they come in. Felix Nkunda, what do you have for us on international scene?
Now, of course, international stories. Again, we'll be looking at something quite erroneous, I must say, and sad, that in Canada, well, at least mass graves were found that sparked call for more action. Now, indigenous group in Canada did come out to make demand of a nationwide search for mass graves after the discovery of at least 215 remains of children. Now, the TK MPAPs, First Nation, announced last week that at least remains were found at a former residential school set up in assimilation that was meant to assimilate indigenous people. Now, the find sparked outrage, prompting some of the Canadians to lay out tiny shoes and makeshift memorial there. Now, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau pledged to help, but gave few details. He also came out to say that as a dad, I can't imagine what it would feel like to have my kids taken away from me. And he also added that as a Prime Minister, I am appalled by the shameful policy that stole indigenous children from their communities. Still in international stories, now the World Health Organization comes out to rename UK and other variants with Greek letters. Now the World Health Organization, Alista, announced a new naming system for variants of COVID-19. From now on, the World Health Organization, it will look at the Greek letters to refer to variants first detected in countries like UK, South Africa and India. The UK variant for instance, is to be labeled Alpha. The South African will be labeled Beta, and the Indian will be labeled Delta. Now, the World Health Organization said this was to simplify discussion, but also to help remove some stigma from names. Earlier this month, the Indian government criticized the naming of the variant B1617.2, first detected in the country last October as the Indian variant through World Health Organization, where we saw that this had never been officially labeled for any drug. Now, the country should be stigmatized for detecting and reporting variants. That is, of course, the WHO came out to say, but also that these names were meant to assist in labeling, but not to cause stigma to the respective countries. Now back to Africa, where we're looking at least 50 killed in attack on the two DR Congo villages. Now 50 people have been killed in two overnight attacks in the Democratic Republic of Congo, deeply troubled East, a military official and monitor said. Now a local official blames the Allied Democratic Forces, which has been linked to the ISIL or ISIS group of the military that is known for the Islam extremists, where we see the spokesperson Joel Ngongo told the Ravta News Agency that the fighters attacked the village of Bonga and Chabi in the eastern Ituri region. The two villages lie on the border between North Kivu and Ituri province, in an area where the ADF is believed to be active. Other sources said the attack may have been ethnic in origin, but also one community leader said children and the elderly were among the victims. Well, basically that's what has been some of the headlines in our international stories. Sad is the Canada story. I can never imagine what pain it could leave for toddlers to be killed in a magnitude of over 200 and probably buried in a mass grave. Some of these very, very unsightly, unheartedly acts were seen in the late 20th century, where we saw a lot of attacks on ethnicities. We saw what happened in Germany, we saw what happened in Israel, and you know, even the greatest genocide that has ever been there was amongst men, men against men. We saw it here in Rwanda, we saw what happened in South Africa, we saw what happened in Congo, Mboga, what Publius was referred as to Mboga Zaire. Some of these things are simply about ego, and all of us simply do all these things to our colleagues simply because of maybe what we believe they actually don't believe. It's as simple as that. You can imagine mass graves in Canada for kids. What a pain.
Very hurting, Felix. Innocent souls, they're not into the politics, they're not into whatever it is, but someone decides to take an innocent life. But for me also, I'll come back to Africa when we talk about Democratic Republic of Congo. To me, I've always asked myself a question, that when we have these fights, we see our brothers, the big brothers, coming to help. But I've always asked myself, where do the weapons come from? As they come to ensure we have talks, to ensure there's so much aid being given and all this, the weapons, this heavy machinery that you've seen these people carrying. The ammunition. The ammunition, who manufactures it? How does it access these people? You know, because you'll find that what they do best is, some countries are known that what they best earn money from. Let's also throw more light on finding the source of weapons these people have, and we have an end to how they access them. Maybe this will also do great away from the talks and then peace-keeping missions. That is something that I also want to focus on.
There's a song done by now the late Herman Basugde. In that song, I think it's called Africa. Now he comes out and says that for these people who sell ammunition, when they sell 2 guns to you, they'll go to your enemy and sell them 6 guns. Oh. Because that's the only way they do business. And in that song, he makes true. Actually, the song is called Africa. He talks about a lot of things. He talks about the issue of religion. He says, let's be honest, let's face it. Everything about us is wrong and bad, but everything about the white man is good and right. Our religion is supposed to be everything about the white man is good and good. It's supposed to be good. When you do practice your own traditional ways, you're evil. that is certain. But how does that work?
Bring in the element of human rights.
Exactly.
Have
Yeah.
you ever seen a white Satan?
A what?
In case of biblical any expression where the devil is white?
No.
I've always asked, why is the devil black?
But God will be
But Jesus is white.
definitely, definitely. So it's
Wow.
and that's what they want you to think. Now, some of these things happen to Africa. Look at what's happening in Congo. And it's been continuous. It's been continuous. For example, we've seen a lot of these countries, like a couple of stories coming out, investigations. I wonder if we ever see, for example, UBC going to do an investigative story in US. Can that even happen? And this is something that God has helped us understand. The new generation should do things differently. Honestly, you know that, as I've told you a story, lastly, let me just say this. Like, you remember what I always say, how dare you tell me that my own language is evil, is wrong, and then you have a country where you have a foreign language as a national language. Like, what happened to us black people?
In short, the next 5 years for our president of Uganda is to actually deal with such things as what Felix is trying to highlight. Taking charge of your own territory and having the superiority test and say over what happens within your territory. That should be the power that is onto every African continent, every African country, and upon every African leader. That is the mandate that should be on the helm of everything else. Now, speaking of which, we do have song for the day here on the first day of June 2021, and our song of the day should be able to inspire you through it as we get into the next segment, which is a newsreel discussing agriculture.
of the day on UBC, brought to you by
We've cut and reduced our MTN Momo withdrawal rates. Now you can withdraw mobile money at the lowest rates. You also get MTN Century Points when you deposit, send and withdraw MTN mobile money. Visit our Momo agents countrywide and withdraw mobile money at our reduced rates from 1st May 2021. Everywhere you go, MTN.
Echa COVID-19 chijja kugwa. If we get vaccinated now, observe social distancing, wear masks properly, sanitize or wash our hands with soap and water regularly. Together we can defeat this enemy.
What does it mean to be closer together? It's taking the last bus home for a surprise visit. Closer together is strangers finding a connection. It's bringing home something much more than a box. It's the warmth of home, or the beginning of something new. There's magic in sharing the things that we love, because it's those things that bring us close together.
Prosper with Airtel Money today. Agent application and registration is free of charge. All you need to submit as a sole proprietor business is a letter from the business owner requesting for a SIM card and the purpose of the SIM card. Certified copy of Certificate of Registration of the Business issued by URSB. Certified copy of Statement of Particulars of the Registered Business and supporting statutory declaration in verification of the particulars. Copy of valid trading license of operational license issued by the relevant regulatory authority. Copy of TIN certificate issued by URA. Valid national ID for Ugandan proprietor, or passport for foreign national, including a valid immigration entry permit, work permit, visa, or residence certificate. Colored passport size photograph of the proprietor and handler of the business. Proof of current physical address of the business, tenancy agreement or utility bill in the name of the proprietor or landlord, or LC1 introduction letter confirming ownership and location of the business. You will be informed of your application status within a maximum of 5 working days, still free of charge. Upon successful agent application, Airtel will provide training and customized branding material for your business location, still free of charge. To register, call us today on 126 toll-free. Airtel Money. Simple, secure, borderless. Airtel is regulated by Uganda Communications Commission.
On UBC TV. Now, yes, but don't be among the Nantabulirirwa. If you remember the president's address on Saturday, he began with saying Nantabulirirwa Yasabaragwa Bumba. So observe the standard operating procedures. Go for mass vaccination because it is free and it's up for you. Well, today I want to look at the agriculture sector. Many a times we've said Uganda's backbone is agriculture. Unfortunately, only 40% of the population in agriculture are in commercial agriculture. But that wouldn't be a problem because over time, government has come up with initiatives to boost the agriculture sector. However, the problem now is the agrochemicals. These fake products that are on the market, that even when the few in commercial agriculture, the 40%, try to buy them, they end up making losses. Just to throw more light, when we talk about fake agrochemicals, what are we referring to? These are in various categories that include, seeds, fake seeds, herbicides, insecticides, fungicides, and also other items are not categorized. But however, what has been observed over time is that most of the seeds on market and fertilizers turn out to be fake, and most of the herbicides. Now, a research carried out by Ukora Company Limited, one of the leading distributors of herbicides and seeds, indicates that 30 to 40 of the agricultural inputs on market in Uganda today are fake. That means the farmer would not get what they had expected. This is what I, Felix, and Priscilla are going to be discussing. Felix, very interesting but also annoying is that a farmer wakes up one day, goes to an agricultural shop to purchase either fertilizers, pesticides, herbicides, to mention but a few, and all they get are fake. The big question has always been, how do these things access market?
Well, of course, that's a quite lucrative one, but I must say as a matter of fact that when you look at, let's say, in the sector of agriculture, it has various composures. As you've talked about, there's, you look at agriculture, it has various composures. As you've talked about, there's, you look at, in terms of animal, what you want to call pesticides, then herbicides, and of course you go to aquaculture as well. There also, but there's what they call standardization in agricultural products, and this is by law. It's also governed by a statutory body. In fact, when you talk about mandated standardization in terms of agricultural products, it deals with the inputs and the outputs as well. If you remember the most recent was about maize, that it had a particular level of toxins and all this. That is part of the standardization because of the absence of standardized levels in terms of agriculture. When you come to some other farmers, they will tell you they look at organic agriculture. All these are in the bid to have particular standards. Now, when you come to pesticides in particular, the first question you asked is, how do they get onto the market? They access their ways into the market because of the absence of standardized improvisements in terms of agricultural products. For example, if anyone interests themselves to carry out a study in Uganda, don't be surprised to find that maybe also another 30% of every 100 foods on the market has infiltrations that could be poisonous. Because one, how they are kept, how they are transported. You can imagine in terms of fishing, go to aquaculture. When fish is fished from the lake, how is it moved from that point to all these things? Now, that's what I'm talking, that the biggest challenge we have, and generally, is about standardization. There are various institutions that are tasked with this kind of work. For example, there are what we call primary bodies and secondary standardization and quality control. In Uganda, for that matter, is the body that is the Uganda National Bureau of Standards. Yes. It's the primary body. Now, later on, actually, in this case, it should be secondary, but the first one should be the ministry, because there's a full ministry in terms of agriculture, which should be able to give guidance and regulation in terms of those pesticides, whatever, that do access the market, in accordance to the effect. For example, in Uganda, it would be wrong for you to bring a pesticide that maybe is meant for dealing with horses or what. Yet you know that, okay, it can be brought in, but quantities should be looked at. That's why you're going to end up having people using horse medicine, which cases I've had, on cows. So standardization is not even about wrong or fake. It's about all those aspects. You get it. For example, there are pesticides for dry areas. pesticides for wet areas. You've heard of those stories that you don't spray during rain season because it's going to come and wash away all. But there are also pesticides meant to be sprayed during rain. Now, standardization is that it should cut across. Now, in Uganda, it is something you've never heard of. You talk about the responsibility of the ministry, the secondary party, or again under primary category, you will also look at the standard bodies. But you look at now the KCCA, the local bodies, and the enforcement, and then the farmers' associations. For example, the role of trade unions in the sense of enforcement when it comes to these own market of false products on the market is actually larger than even the one of the ministry. Like those bodies of associations, because it will speak into protecting their work. I can give you one case scenario for me, ministry. Like those bodies of associations, because it will speak into protecting their work. I can give you one case scenario for me. I remember, I think 2 months ago, there was a crackdown somewhere in Container Village or something. Now, people were surprised that they found pesticides that are manufactured in this country that are not meant for the purpose or not good for shelf, so many things. But guess what? They are produced with licenses, they pay taxes, with addresses. How does that happen?
Very confusing there, but one of the things I think it was 2 months, that operation you talked about, that was called Let's Buy Original. And what was interesting is that they found, Ugandans are very crafty people, Priscilla, that when government licenses a specific, let me just mention a common thing, that is Amitex, for example. So a Ugandan will just go to Nasa Road, let me use Nasa Road because it's known. So they'll just get that cover. Then they will print Amitex. Go home, come up with whatever they are coming up with, then put it on shelf. So there are those that are done here. Then you have a Ugandan. Remember when you had the Ame one for maize? Everyone would come up. I think I've discovered something that can work. Just go to shop else, then buy. So we have what is important. We have what is made here in Uganda. We have what is duplicated. Someone just gets the cover, or to fight. But importantly for our viewer also to know, Priscilla, what is the effect? So that when we blow the trumpet, people will know that actually this thing is affecting us, and indeed we should join forces to fight it.
Well, if we want to look at the effects, you want to look at the effects in 3 ways. The first way would be the stockist, the person who is actually selling these drugs. And then the second person, the person who is actually selling these drugs. And then the second person or entity that is affected is the farmer or the owner of the agriculture. And then the third person is the end user or the consumer at the end of the day of the agricultural product. Now, when you look at the stockist, honestly, stockists are they only get license for KCCA to be able to do drug selling. That is the best that they get in connection to this conversation that we are having. Now, you will have these stockists being attended to by people that have chemical companies and people who actually come up with these pesticides, the agro products that they use to be able to control, you know, insects, and anything that affects the agricultural process of any crop or plant or animal for that matter, or even fisheries. Now, they're the ones who come to the stockists and tell you, okay, we have this, it does this and does this. Like, okay, do you have clients with this? You know, they do their bargaining, and the stockist will stock these treatments that we're talking about. Now, the farmer will come and buy these treatments. Now, because the stockist wants to make money, he will consider perhaps clients, agriculturalists of all classes and levels. The high-end class who can afford the expensive drugs, and then the lower class level who's just starting or cannot really afford the high-end price. And they'll give them something that is affordable according to their status. Now, affordability according to their status is where then we'll have cases of counterfeit products coming onto the market that one Robert Kirabo, as he's catering to his dogs, came up with a concoction, and the concoction worked in dealing with ticks on his dogs. So he decided, but if I just make this solution and sell to everybody, it will work. 1, 2 people testify, but you have not looked at the impact of your concoction to the dog. Because later on, the dog will also suffer effects of that concoction. So now the stockist is left to to just take in and give out to whom it may concern and at whatever status of it that they can. And that's his business. You cannot put it on him. So now that is where you'll have to take this conversation back either to the Ministry of Agriculture or have to have this conversation being pushed at the Standardization Bureau level. That is where you can control it. Alternatively, you will have to say that only these companies can produce anything that is chemical related and is for agriculture. And they are given the license to produce those products, those medications, those treatments. If not that, then counterfeit is still going to be, you know, lump sum on the market. Now, when you go to the farmer is going to use the pesticides, the agro products in order to deal with whatever challenge he's faced in his small business. Now, the first challenge is going to go to what you call nature, the environment. The soils are going to receive these agrochemicals and they're going to definitely alter the way the grounds are, the soils are composed. That already in itself is an effect. Now, furthermore, this very same chemical is going to go into the animal or the plant. And it's going to change the status or the stature, the chemically, for the animal or the plant. Meaning that you will produce something that is ready and ripe for the market. But you'll put it out on the market and Kirabo will go back home. This lumonde, it's a bit bitter. This cassava, these days this cassava has a different color on the market. And that is all cause of the agrochemicals that are being introduced into the agricultural sector. And that then gets into your body and one day you're told you have a funny cancer that is untreatable, unrecognized, it's a new type of cancer. And that makes it a whole cycle simply because of the issue of standardization that Felix did talk about.
And not forgetting the worst bit of it is when it comes to seeds. Recently, Wealth Creation, some time back, was giving out seeds. And one of the comments that came out was, these seeds, you would plant them, but they'll never germinate. I experienced that also. I went and bought maize seeds. And when I planted, I didn't see any. Someone told me how. Because
that are being used on the maize and the pumpkin that you bought so that you can plant, compared to the soil composition, they don't go hand in hand.
I waited for 3 months until people told me, brother.
Count your losses.
Maize cannot take 3 months without germinating. So farmers are making losses. Most of there are so many fake seeds. But also, Felix, when we look at the punishment that is given, the law says 40 currency points or 2 years imprisonment should someone be found selling or manufacturing. Do you think this is deterrent enough?
Have you ever been imprisoned?
No.
Yeah. So when they give someone 2 years, it's very good. It's fair enough. I think when you're looking at enforcement, the latter shouldn't be the most envisaged of focus. The focus should be put on preventing such things to get onto the market. Because by the time we are talking about imprisoning, harm has been done already. I think it's a new challenge towards the government and those institutions that are actually challenging issues of agriculture, and majorly the ministry, that let us focus on putting right than looking at the apprehension later, because the apprehension means that some things have already happened. It means we cannot, there's already damage, but how about we can curtail the damage? I feel that the ministry has done morally less or actually nothing at all in terms of educating and civilizing.
And I would agree to that, because now, interesting to note, you talked about Bukola chemical industries. Such industries are the ones taking on the initiative to protect and safeguard their name on the market. They're taking on initiatives to actually educate farmers on the kind of chemicals that are available, how to identify counterfeit products for what they are exactly purchasing, and that should be one of the mandates for coming direct from the ministry.
Yeah, it's truly in the line of their business. I think the focus should be realigned definitely to what is the interest. For example, institutions that are mandated to cause standardization should be at the forefront of this. The local government councils, like now KCC for this matter in Kampala, what is their role in terms of this?
Giving licenses
people
to
pay licenses to those shops, all pay licenses.
But what do you want KCCA to do? To now go and also test the products on the market?
They have that department, by the way.
They have that department. But the other time we were talking about the whole fact that we have ministries and bodies and entities that have been put in place.
Let me tell you the setup. Let me tell you the setup of Kampala. It's not the same. Kampala has it's an authority it has an act. It has
And of that, we've seen some of these operations being conducted, but however, they are not continuous. They are conducted, I think, when one wakes up and says, to get to Nyonyintono container. So there is lack of that. But I also always have a question, Felix. We have our borders, we have our airports. Most of these are imported. Not so many are made from here. Then you have URA that is looking for revenue. You have
and they will get their revenue
standards that is looking for quality. Can't we have these in tandem so that whatever you bring in, maybe at the point of entry, it can be detected and they tell you this does not access our market, please take it back, rather than waiting for things to access the market? Then people come running, okay, they are counterfeit, they are fake agro chemicals in this place at points of entry.
You know, I think we have very much weak leadership in terms of such disciplines or such areas of practice. There's very weak leadership in terms of standardization in this country. Their will is so fairy and shallow, if I may add. Because if we had robust, because you have institutions where these things are working, but clearly in this particular issues of standardization in this country are so lousy.
We cannot be
and
everywhere.
I can give you an example. You can imagine it's in this country where we look at the quality of goods on shelf. Just walk into any place, as long as if we had the time to test and what, you realize that out of every 10 goods, you may find that only 3 could pass. There's a lot of compromise in terms of standardization in this country. So the leadership in those disciplines, I find it very wanting.
Well, we keep on praying. Many times I've spoken to Sylvia Kirabo, who is the communications manager at Uganda National Bureau of Standards, and all she says, we are few, the enforcers are very few, rely on the public. You be the whistleblowers, then we will take action. So please not just buy these fake products, they harm you, leave it at that. Report to the authorities and we see if they'll follow up, because farmers are making a lot of losses and actually we are also consuming products that are hazardous to our health. When we return, we'll be looking at what is trending in the print media. Good morning, keep it with us.
Has anyone seen Bob?
Over here!
How did you get in there?
With my Airtel Money MasterCard.
But you don't even have a bank account.
Well, it's not a card. It's virtual, so no plastic, and it's safer.
But what are you doing there?
I want to buy Nancy a birthday gift, book my flight tickets, renew my Big Click subscription, and order a shipment.
The Airtel Money MasterCard. It's not a card, but works just like one. Get one on the Airtel Money menu on your phone.
Digital tax stamps are applied to goods or their packaging with security features or codes to avoid forging of goods and enable tracking and tracing capabilities.
Uganda Revenue Authority, developing Uganda together. Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda. Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda.
Good morning once again. This is Good Morning Uganda, and thank you for being part of the program. Please make it a date every weekday from 6:30. We're here till the hour of 9 when Ruben crowns it up, all with the world of sports. But also follow us on our various social media platforms, on YouTube, on Facebook, but also on Twitter, where you get live updates of what is happening during this program. I'm holding the new vision of today, the 1st July, and a very big headline: opening of lower classes uncertain. Remember, they were supposed to report back, that is next week, but as of now, it is uncertain with the number of COVID-19 cases detected in education institutions. Still in the New Vision of picture there, where we see people rush for COVID-19 vaccination. This is happening at Kolo Ceremonial Grounds. It is ongoing, and do not miss getting that jab. Prevention is better than cure. We also see Kaihura friends on why they deserted him. That is former IGP. Friends come out to disclose why they deserted him. Yesterday there's a big headline, "My friends deserted me, trust God and not human beings." Now Chambogo suspends physical learning. That is Chambogo University after a couple of cases. 50 were detected of students and staff there with COVID-19. It's now online. Then what you need to know about oil and gas sector. The New Vision brings you more of that. And on top of the front page of the Vision, there we look at her vision, Nakalema's journey of hard work. Yes, the New Vision brings you that. And Matters Day, police urges public to avoid Namugongo. Yes, Nkunda.
The Daily Monitor, schools hit by COVID-19 fear. Of course, now we're looking at too close or not. This is the question puzzling many education institutions as coronavirus infections are reported in schools amid the reports that some head teachers are concealing the cases. Wow. The mobile money, a battleground for service providers, but also with a couple of tenders here in the Daily Monitor. And on other stories, know your MPs, know who your MPs are. And where we see fears over Lake Victoria oil spill, no bond for curfew violators. LC3 refuses to hand over. Now in the papers, Kare Kaihura, the former IGP, said he had been deserted by his friends after he was charged with this in the General Court Martial. Now China allows couples to have 3 children. China has allowed at least couples to have up to 3 children. And from the archives, a photo of officers here trying to disperse a crowd there in the Uganda riots in 2009. Now, today in history, Uganda Society of Architects was formed, and also in history today, CNN launches, and again, deal to end chemical weapon was signed in 1990.
In the New Vision, still we look at COVID-19, and I'll begin with Uganda, where so far new confirmed cases are 524 confirmed cases. Death, 0 by the grace of the Lord. And then we look at total deaths so far registered, 362. Please do not be part of these statistics. We look at cumulative total recoveries, stand at 43,401. That is recoveries so far. And still our neighbors, how they're being affected. Well, so much is happening in Kenya. And it is clear here that Uganda, now we have 5 variants. We have that the Indian, the South Africa, and that from Britain. So COVID is out there. Today in history, it was on this date, the 1st of June, the year 1998, when Museveni blasts Mengo overland. Still in history, on this very date, the same month, but the year 1869, the electric voting machine was patented by Thomas A. Edison. Know your member of parliament. We look at today Linda Agnes Awuma, who is Lila Woman Member of Parliament, and also Samuel Okwiri, MP Moroto County.
Now in sports, Kajoa walks out on Vipers to keep Crane's job, and Akandwanaho still in Crane's collapse shock. Now Pachi Bull lose but dump out Holders Proline there. And of course, still in sports, we'll be looking at Copa America respite. Brazil offers Messi hope. And of course, also Nalwoga pledges to deliver home for Cricket Association. And Wakiso not worried of She Maroon striking force. And of course, now Sun bounced back even series. Lakers, Davis there injured. And Real showed on faith in the says. Zidane says that at least he's moving on, but his heart is left in Madrid.
Looking at the New Vision sport, Hazard working or battling to be fit, and we are ready for the competition. That is the Olympics. 53 days now to go. Still, was Kajoba pushed or he jumped? That is a question there for you. And they give you more regarding Stanbic, Uganda Cup, quarter finals, and return league. So much is there, but don't forget, Ruben Kasera Mpima Chibirango will be here. There's something that keeps me wondering. When we were growing up, it was hard for you to see military police. I remember the first time, if they would surface anywhere, there was something that happened with Muslims, and I think it was a very serious battle. That was the first time I was in primary being taken home, and my father, everyone was scared, the red top. But today, they seem so often. Have we become more rebellious? Do we need, and sometimes we wonder, where is police? I was watching Kololo, just telling people to sit. This would think would be something for the police and not for the military police.
Why would you think that way?
I think it's a simple task.
Why would you think that way?
It's a simple task. We wouldn't see our men that we know usually that maybe would come to assist where situations seemingly could be very hard.
Well, of course, they're still part of the coercive forces, and as the police has always continuously said that they work with their sister agencies, which by that would mean the UPDF. When they're called to duty, I don't find any harm in it. I really don't find any harm in it.
No, I hope
they're
people
deployed there, let them do the job.
People don't get used to them as they gotten used to police. That sometimes, you know, so much of seeing someone at times will have that effect. But Priscilla is ready to take us through traffic updates, showing us how best and how fast, how safe to get to your destination. I found Priscilla Nalwoga. I can't imagine you putting on that Zangare thing, the shoes. Well, I can't wait to see Priscilla put on that uniform. But please save us the laughters, because it will really be very hard if I see my sister there dressed in that uniform. However, I want to commend the good job that traffic officers do. I was one of these Ugandans who would always arrive at traffic lights and I quarrel. Why the good job that traffic officers do? I was one of these Ugandans who would always arrive at traffic lights and I quarrel. Why don't they let these traffic lights work? Why are they violating them? But not until I recognized that actually the flow of jam and the traffic lights may not be in tandem. Most of the old ones that we had, where they keep on, it's time to release more, leaving the city, the traffic lights seem constant. And now I appreciate the fact that really, yes, the traffic officers should take precedent over the traffic lights, because actually they save us the burden. Lady Priscilla, traffic officer, back to you.
Let me save you the burden of looking at one of these areas that has been cumbersome in terms of construction, and UNRA yesterday came out to give a statement, and they told us that what is known as the Chemando interchange flyover at the Kampala Northern Bypass has now been opened for public use. However, it's still going to remain an active construction site, but because of the interchanging routes that have been opened, it will now, the traffic that is mostly affected is the traffic that is coming in from Bwaise, Kalere. You also do have traffic of Chebando, traffic of Chisasi, and traffic of Bukoto that is going to be accessing this interchange. The roundabout, which is under temporal closure, you do have the interchange that have been constructed around to be able to ease management of traffic for people who take residency in all these areas or even do business in these areas. Mainly affected is Bukoto, Chisasi, Kalere, and also Chebando. But we want to see what have been the alternative routes that people have been using. Now, there's been an alternative route that people have been using to get into Kamocha. And when you use this route, you actually end up dropping your pin or your car in Kamocha, which is the downtown of Kamocha, as they call it, at Kobi Kamocha. That is where you get then connected to Chira Road, and then you get into Bukoto. However, we want to see from the very same interchange route that has now been cleared, how do people get from Chebando to actually Bukoto? And as of this morning, you can actually move from the temporary closed roundabout that is now open as of today, and then you can use that route, and it's going to bring you right into what you call Moyo Close, and then it's equally going to drop you in the Bukoto Chisasi area, where you know you have some of those Sites such as the Sunrise Supermarket would be an indicator for you. You have the Bukoto-Chisasi Road that stretches all the way to Kabira Country Club. Now that would be an option route for you to get into the heart of the city away from the traffic jam, and this lands you into what you have as Kira Road right here. However, alternatively, you can also just stretch it a little bit and continue on the Bukoto-Chisasi Road, and when you see the traffic on Bukoto-Chisasi Road, of course, where you do have the orange red zones, there is a bit of construction that is going on there, and this is going to stretch us all the way. And we're going to have another interaction with still the Kampala Northern Bypass. Now at this interaction, again, we are having interchange routes that were also created on this part of the Kampala Northern Bypass. You have the Chisasi Chanja route in there, and then you have the continuation of the Kampala Northern Bypass, all looking green this morning, meaning that the traffic on the routes is clear this morning. However, just so you note, the Chisasi roundabout was also removed, and it's temporary, not available, so there's diversionary routes for you to get into Chanja, and a diversionary route that has been created on the bypass to be able to continue your way. Now, just following the bypass still this morning, and where else it can actually land us, it will land us in the areas of Nalia most probably. And we want to see how the traffic is looking like on the Kampala Northern Bypass. Now, obviously, because there's continuous construction on the routes, and as you can see from our signs there, this construction, it's affecting the flow of traffic on this particular route. One end of the road is being turned off completely for access to vehicles, meaning that vehicles to and from either Chebando or Bukoto or Karere are using one end of the road for two-way traffic. Now, that is definitely causing a lot of traffic, and because also you do have trucks, you do have container vehicles that are using these as alternative routes to stay away from the main routes, which would in this case be the Kampala-Jinja highway. That is why you're also having red zones building up there because of the trucks. Now we get to see the rest of it, and it's going to definitely bring us into Nalia. Nalia is another area that has equally been affected by the construction or the reconstruction of the bypass, and it brings us to another interchange area that has been put for people to access Nalia, for people to continue all the way to Boyogere, and also for people to jump off and continue into Ntinda Chiwatule. Now these interchange routes have not yet been opened. However, there's diversionary routes that UNRA has created to be able for you to access Nalia when you're coming from Ntinda, or you can access any other place coming from Ntinda or coming from Nalia. But you still have to be mindful, and this is where it's very, very important that you learn your signs. You must learn your road signs, because it's the road signs that are going to help you. You're going to find an afternoon where there's literally no vehicle, and so you'll be confused on which route to take. The best would be in the morning when everyone is almost going the same direction you're going. You can, do a bandwagon and follow. But on the day there's no bandwagon, what are you going to do? You will have to be conversant with your traffic signage so that you can be able to use the right route. Otherwise, you're going to end up in the wrong place and you're going to lose time. But speaking of time, we now get to have a look at what is weather and climate. This morning, we had a conversation about agriculture and how these agrochemicals do affect environment, nature, and Molen Kenyana is here for me to have this conversation with her, and how actually this then builds up into the weather. Well, we'll be looking at those signs that were recommended by UNRA. We'll be having that coming up on the screen later on. But as Kenyana comes through, good morning to you, Kenyana.
Yes, good morning, Priscilla. And yeah, thank you for giving us that update on the traffic. Yes, we should crown you as our traffic officer kind of queen. We should get you a crown one of these days.
Okay,
yes.
So have you had any interaction with the Kampala Northern Bypass, and what has been your experience in like the last 2 weeks?
Yes, there is actually has been traffic building up, especially on those roundabouts, and the Waise one and Kalere, I think, are usually the ones that really get packed up with the traffic. But I think with UNRA opening up that other road now open to public, it should really ease up on things. Yeah.
Okay, all right. So we were having a conversation regards agrochemicals and how when put into the ground, they do affect the environment, the composition of the soils.
Yes.
And what is your 2 cents as a qualified analyst on this conversation?
Yes, it's obvious that when you apply some of these fertilizers, pesticides, they're like foreign to the soil, and obviously they will change the composition, not to a bigger percentage per se, but this is something foreign. It's like when you're sick and then you have to get treated, so they give you a painkiller, but the painkiller will heal what is paining you, but obviously a proven record, there is a side effect and you won't notice it, but in a long run, that's why like doctors do recommend, do not take some of these over-the-counter medicine by yourself or over time. So it is the same thing that happens even with the soil. When you continuously apply these foreign fertilizers and chemicals, they will change the appearance of the soil, and obviously that also includes its fertility. So I would recommend, personally, I keep recommending, do use some of the practices that are available to us and reduce on those foreign products that we keep putting into our soils. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, I looked at my weather forecast this morning, and it showed that in the morning it would be a little bit chilly, but later on the sun will be building up and shining all day long. I thought this was supposed to be like a very long spell of a rainy season.
Yeah. Yes, there is quite a chilly condition going on around here. We are actually headed for more reduced wet activities, so do not expect more rains, especially across the southern part of the country. And this is a conversation that we started yesterday. More of the rains are actually predicted for northern Uganda, mostly to the Karamoja region. So you're in for some dry weather, and when we have dry weather, actually we do expect also minimum temperatures, and those are the ones that carry on from overnight into the morning. You will feel chilly, and that will go on. Expect it till September at least. So yes,
okay,
Priscilla, you can start packing your warm clothing for early morning and late night. But then remember, as the day comes in, we start to see the sun, so it will warm up. So you need to really get the difference there and prepare well.
All right, so this morning, what do you have for us?
Well, this morning I wanted to continue the conversation still, like you were mentioning, about the rainy season that we've started on. We want to specifically look at the Karamoja region, and recently we had instances there of extreme weather, but we want to take a deeper look at what the forecast is entailing across that region. Now that means we have had a forecast from ICPAC together with National Meteorological Services, as well as hydrological services, and the forecast that they are giving us is actually for more rains that are expected across the Karamoja region. Hydrological services, and the forecast that they are giving us is actually for more rains that are expected across the Karamoja region, and also specifically where you see this yellow line and also the orange line. That is where we expect the onsets for these rains that are coming up for June to September. But also important to note is how Karamoja has been performing in terms of the areas that carry out mostly agricultural practice. When you see where there is actually from the key, you can see the green one. Now these are the areas in Karamoja that have been practicing agriculture. We do have a beam there and a part of Napak as well, Nakapiripirit, Amdat. Those are the areas that have been practicing agriculture over time. Now also when you look closely to the map, we have that part that is practicing agro-pastoral activities. Now that takes in Kotido, we do have Napak there, as well as Kabong and part of Nakapiripirit, which has mostly agriculture, but at the same time they also practice pastoralism, and that area is also known mostly for those activities. Now we do have the extreme end of Karamoja, and that is to the eastern side of Karamoja, where we do have Moroto and also part of Kabong. Now that is strictly mostly cattle keeping for that area, and also part of Amudat. Actually, like 90% of Amudat carries out cattle keeping. Now we want to relate what this means in terms of the rainy season that is expected over there. most areas that we will focus on in terms of agriculture will be that part of a beam specifically, where there is more likelihood actually for rainy conditions. And we will be looking at, if we are talking about the practices for agriculture over this area, which ones should we be concerned about, which kind of crops should we be planting as the rains are expected to actually start later this season. We also want to look at the climate projections for this area, specifically the Karamoja region. Now, we do have had agricultural production thriving mostly across Abim and part of the western part of Karamoja, but the reports that we have from that area, looking at the climate projections, we do have areas that were mostly having water scarcity, but that is only in dry seasons. But look at the projection there by 2050. We're talking about how we're looking at temperature increases over this area by 2050. We do see a 0.3 to 2.8 degrees increase in temperatures. Now that is quite an increase when we look at how many years we're left to get there. That's close to 3 centuries, and it means a lot in terms of looking at climate variability. We also have increased incidences of extreme weather, that is dry periods, heavy rains and droughts. Now, an important factor that I've noticed across Karamoja is that most of these incidences that really do happen, you will find that most times when we have dry periods, we do have that drought that comes with it. But at the same time, when the rains come in, then we start to look at extreme weather. So you find that most areas, when they are carrying out agriculture, so the rains come and then we have waterlogging. That means that will create some kind of challenge to the crops, especially the root crops. Most of them remain deep down in the soils, and then there is waterlogging, so that really affects it. And that is something that we look at as we talk about the rains in Karamoja. We also want to take mostly a deeper look at the average rainfall that is received over this area. And we're talking about a period from industrial level, that is 1981 up to 2000. Now take a look at the areas that are still practicing out agriculture, and that is part of Napak and also Moroto there, like parts within central Moroto where we do have that deep blue color. You can see those are the areas that we are having at least more rainfall, received close to 900 millimeters within a rainy season. Now, we also want to take a look at mid-Karamoja region. Those are the areas within the central part of Karamoja where we do have, there is partly an increasing trend in rainfall, but at the same time, we do have rains that go below 600 millimeters on average. So that is that can go to show you that even when we receive rains in this area, it still remains among the areas that do have less rains across the country. We also want to look at the mean temperatures within the Karamoja region, 01 to 2000. Now take a look at that deep orange and red over there. Even when we go beyond 25, actually, we sometimes forecast temperatures in 36 and also up to 40 sometimes. This is the one region that is mostly warm across the country. Actually, across the whole of Uganda, Karamoja region is known to have the warmest trend across the country. So you can see much of what is predicted here from what we have on the average temperatures. Basing from industrial level, that is 1981, we have increased trend in temperatures over that area. And all this actually, when you look at the projections, still from 1960 to 2039, we're talking about the June to September, which is the season we're also forecasting now. Even when we have these rains that are forecasted country, that is Karamoja, we look at how much there has been a warming trend across this region. And when we talk about a warming trend, I want us to note that these are some of the parameters we look at when we're talking about climate variability and also talking about climate change impacts in this region, because most of the extreme weather that is related to this warming trend is actually due to some of the climate variations that we're seeing over this region. Now, Karamoja has been known to have, from the report that was given out in 2012 from Fuse, it shows that trend where you see that kind of marking. This is the Karamoja region. Now take a look at what we have for March to June. You can see there is more orange actually within the region, meaning we do have quite some warming there. So that is when there is mostly a dry season. But look at the end where we have June and September. We have that orange starting to fizzle out. We have mostly white. So this is when the rains come in and we see kind of reduction in temperatures across that region. That is actually their major rainy season, starting June up to September. Now, having said that, recently we had that extreme condition over Napak. We did have flooding over there that devastated the community, a lot of villages that were disrupted. We did have most of the roads that were cut off. Look at that home there in Napak where we had that incidence of flooding that was really devastating over that area. People had to actually leave their homes and seek for shelter during that heavy rainfall that happened over there, causing flash floods and devastating the areas. This actually happened when we didn't have a major rainy season over that area. But now we are talking about having more rain coming. Now, I want to put this to our local authorities. This is a time that district authorities should be coming out to update their contingency plan, and also for the government. This is a time you actually need to activate that contingency plan over the area, because there is risk for flash flooding over this region as the rains start to come in, especially when we look at the onset starting mid-June and also the peak at during May and August. That is the time you really do need to look out for the flash flooding likely and expected over that region, and also mostly to the residents in Karamoja. When these rains start up and we're like the forecast is saying mid-June, that is the time you start planting the long-growing crops that are actually known to be thriving over this area. We do have mostly millets, we do have sorghum, cassava, those long-growing crops, that's the long-growing crops that are actually known to be thriving over this area. We do have mostly millets, we do have sorghum, cassava, those long-growing crops that thrive over the area. Those are the ones you start with. But then as the rains progress, then you start to bring in the short-growing crops, mostly like vegetables and the whatever tuber crops. And that is when actually you see them thriving, because now the rains have stabilized. But at the beginning of the season, you can start to plant the long-growing ones. Now, we'll come back and take a look at what we have in terms of weather over the country today. We do have mostly cloudy conditions across the country, and that is starting to develop over most areas. We do have mostly that rainy system that started earlier this morning across southwestern Uganda. That was across Fort Portal, still Doroko. Most regions, actually, even Kasese, starting to have that rainy system developing over there. But that is also extending westwards. Bwera also had that cloudy condition with a little bit of light rains, and also parts of the lower part of Fort Portal. But that rain is starting to clear, and we will see mostly a very clear day as the morning goes on. But much of the country is actually having clear skies, mostly a sunny morning. We do have part of the Karamoja region and northern Uganda, mostly cloudy, and most of the areas this morning will be dealing with intervals of sunny and cloudy conditions. But we do expect some areas to have some rains as the day progresses, and we will be looking at our forecast shortly. But I can tell you, throughout the Lake Victoria Basin, that system that is starting to develop is mostly bringing us cloudy conditions. Even Kampala here, what we're seeing is mostly intervals of sunny and cloudy conditions. But we do have a forecast that will be bringing us rains later as the day goes on, especially to the western part of the Lake Victoria Basin. We'll go ahead and look at our forecast, but as we look at part of the central Lake Victoria Basin, that also takes in Kampala, Wakiso, still dealing with as intervals of sunny and cloudy conditions, but at a very beautiful 26 degrees. That is what is feeling chilly, and Priscilla was complaining about it. But wait, later in the afternoon when we have temperatures go up to 29 or 28 over this area. That is what we have. for this morning. Now we do have southwestern Uganda where we have Mbarara, Ibanda, Bushenyi. We are also forecasting a mix of clouds and sunshine over there with a maximum of 27, quite warm as well over that area. We do have also Rubirizi actually falling in that category. Now for eastern parts of central where we have Wobulenzi, Ruwero and Nakaseke, we are forecasting a very warm day, a very warm morning. Look at that 28 over there, and also we're going to have a mix of clouds and sunshine. Now for the eastern parts of Lake Victoria Basin, that is where we have Tororo and Jinja, we do forecast pleasant 27, and we'll also be dealing with mostly intervals of sunny and cloudy conditions. It is already sunny over there with the sun coming through. Take a look at Gulu there, very warm 29 for this morning with a forecast of mostly sunny conditions. Now, if you are traveling from central part of the country towards northern Uganda, you might need to take note of those temperatures over there. It is quite hot. Now, look at western part of Lake Victoria. That is where we have Masaka, Sembabule and Rakai. We are forecasting that sunny intervals, but we do have rains coming in this morning, isolated over a few areas at 26. Now eastern Uganda, that is across Soroti, Kumi, Katakwi, we are forecasting a very sunny morning as well at a daytime high, no at minimum temperatures going up to 28 degrees. Now Mbale, Bududa, that is where we have Mount Elgon Highlands. We are also forecasting a mix of clouds and sunshine, and temperatures will be going up to 26 degrees. Well, that is all we have for you this morning, and thank you very much for catching up with this our weather updates here in UBC. We do have the Good Morning Uganda agenda coming up with Robert. That will be taking you all the way up to 9. We do have also sports coming after that. Do follow us on our YouTube channel as we stream live, and also you can follow the conversations on our social media handles. That includes Twitter. Thank you very much. My name is Molen Kenyana, wishing you a good morning.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala is Good Morning Uganda.
Pick of the day on UBC, brought to you by was brought to you by.
We've cut and reduced our MTN Momo withdrawal rates. Now you can withdraw mobile money at the lowest rates. You also get MTN Central Points when you deposit, send and withdraw MTN mobile money. Visit our Momo agents countrywide and withdraw mobile money at our reduced rates from 1st May 2021. Everywhere you go. MTN.
Digital tax stamps are applied to goods or their packaging with security features or codes to avoid forging of goods and enable tracking and tracing capabilities.
Uganda Revenue Authority, developing Uganda together.
We've cut and reduced our MTN Momo withdrawal rates. Now you can withdraw mobile money at the lowest rates. You also get MTN Central Points when you deposit, send and withdraw MTN mobile money. Visit our Momo agents for mobile money at our reduced rates from 1st May 2021. Everywhere you go. MTN.
Echa COVID-19 kijja kugwa. If we get vaccinated now, observe social distancing, wear masks properly, sanitize or wash our hands with soap and water regularly. Together we can defeat this enemy.
When you talk about our motherland Uganda, the Pearl of Africa, you cannot fail to smile because of the smile that fills the faces of the citizens. Our nice good weather and nature that sustains us all, that enables us all to continue each in their own way because we are all different even according to each individual's work. But what joins us to become one person is the sweetness from the flavored drink Alleluia Jingati drink and Alleluia Tamarind drink. The flavor that quenches your thirst while at the same time treating and healing your body because it is 100% natural. Enjoy the drink that has got the tamarind juice in it. Made by Alleluia Reflexology, Healthy Solutions and Nutritional Research Center Limited. Get yourself a bottle of Alleluia from all shops around.
It's no secret that ICT makes learning easy.
The strides made in our field could not be possible without it.
And now we can watch our favorite show.
My radio is my best friend.
UCC provides an enabling regulatory environment and policy guidance for healthy competition. We also facilitate ease of doing business in the communications sector through licensing, standardization, spectrum management, tariff regulation, rural communication development, and consumer empowerment. An informed consumer is an empowered consumer. UCC supports local content and innovations. Driving the development of a robust communication sector in Uganda is Uganda Communications Commission.
What does it mean to be closer together? It's taking the last bus home for a surprise visit. Closer together is strangers finding a connection. It's bringing home something much more than a box. It's the warmth of home, or the beginning of something new. There's magic in sharing the things that we love, because it's those things that bring us close together.
A lovely morning to you. Once again, welcome to the first day of yet a new month, and it is very clear we are halfway there. Look at your resolutions. How far have you gone? What have you failed? Do you still have a way you can improve in the remaining 12 months? That is up to you to do personal assessment. Once again, I'm Kirabo, Nyonyintono, and welcome to Good Morning Uganda Agenda. This time I'm with my comrade, my brother, that is Felix Nkunda, with whom we are going to be looking at COVID-19 specific focus in, that is the education sector or schools, cases in schools that are now very worrying. On Saturday, the head of state addressed the nation, and he said it was a warning, creating more awareness that yes, the enemy is around. Previously, remember, he said during the Bush War, you squat, you listen, then you know how to move forward. This time around, we know tomorrow, that is a task force on COVID-19 will be meeting. Yes, we can maneuver the situation. But just a small reminder to take you back in 2020 when we had an outbreak of COVID-19. First, on the 18th of March, His Excellency addressed the nation. By then, we didn't have any single case of COVID-19, but he gave about 46 measures that were aimed at preventing the spread of COVID-19. And among them was closure of education institutions. He said about 15 million Ugandans university. So he said, let's have these go back home. Stay home, safeguard them, because numbers really aid, that is the spread of COVID-19. And schools were closed for almost a year. We later saw the ministry, government, opening schools in a phased manner. That was beginning with candidate classes, then semi-candidates, and the others are yet to follow. But as this was happening, now here we are in the second wave. And so far, about 803 cases have been registered in schools, about 29 schools in 17 districts. The latest being Chambogo University, where the Vice Chancellor came out and said, yes, we've registered 50 cases of students and 8 cases of staff. We saw Green Hill yesterday also, they issued a statement suspending some classes because of cases of COVID-19 that were registered. The dilemma is that many, however, do not report because they fear the outcomes of having gotten this. Now I bring in my friend Felix. Felix, you know, education is very important. You know, we saw the outcomes when we tried to close in the bid of COVID-19. Here we have a dilemma. Cases day by day are increasing in our education institutions.
Well, it's sad, I must say. It's very much sad that we are at this place. The hope would be that if you do want to take a keen picture into 2020, around March, when we went into the lockdown, by this time last year, we were hoping that things would be much better by this time, actually. The hope was that by 2021, media would differ into how we would have dealt with the COVID-19. The expectation is that we should be far from where we are. COVID-19 most previously was not a threat to young people. And that was a matter of fact. That's why actually they used even to say that the SOPs were not majorly applicable to at least children who were below the age of 6 years, 6 and below. That's why it didn't matter for them to wear masks or, you know, basically be catered for these SOPs. However, most recent, the reverse is true. If I remember well, there's also been information that there's even a student who died. I don't know how true it is, but that's what is in the domain of news. We have seen most recent also some schools come out to completely make declaration that they are not in position to handle kids in this particular time. Some of the schools have even sent students back home. What am I trying to say? The declaration that they are not in position to handle kids in this particular time. Some of the schools have even sent students back home. What am I trying to say? That COVID-19 being present today in Uganda is not in isolation of any institution. All right? If you want to make a balanced argument in terms of enforcement or COVID-19 and how it has affected, I want you to look at how different are, for example, recreational spaces or happening spaces from schools. The only difference is that these people probably are there it's about the purposes, but the way things are operated, the way people mingle, the way, if you've been to school set up in Uganda, because in Uganda we may not be able to have a class, for example, look at UPE schools. A school has over 100 students in a space of about 15 feet by 15. You can imagine that kind of scenario. When you go to other sectors, like the ones I've given you, let's talk about bars or recreational places. It's more or less the same aspect. And this has caused a lot of controversies that if you want to open up schools like they did in what the president called a staggering manner, how, and I remember continuously saying this, how prepared was both government as the primary stakeholder and other stakeholders like parents, teachers, and school owners ready for this? This shouldn't be something for us to be pacing about, because these discussions should have come prior to this so-called staggering approach to academics. One, what you're telling schools to do today, nothing has changed. It's what has been said time and again, which we should have done from the beginning before we opened up schools. Though I hear, I don't know how true it is, that there were bodies that were put to enforce SOPs in schools.
Actually, it is not just rumor, it is factual.
Now,
district task forces were set up they were taken through some training.
Whatever happened, Robert, whatever.
Unfortunately,
let's be
paperwork has not been implemented. Like Felix rightly said, if you look at, remember I had Frederick Chiinji Chinobe, I've just talked to him, that's the district education officer. And he said in the beginning, they said, if a school is, if a school is there, let it be there. If a school is boarding, let it be boarding. But as time went by, they diverted away from that.
So, are we dealing with a new problem or simply issues are simply being carried forward? That's why there's no news in this whole thing.
But do we have the capacity? That is one thing we also must understand.
What do you mean capacity?
Let's look at the three stakeholders. We have the parent, we have the school, and we have government per se. Government came up with standards that must be followed. One, social distancing. That was very clear. Second, children must have masks, but they must also have the sanitizers. Then they must be checked upon entry every moment. The temperature guns, that you have to get their temperature, record the temperatures. But when you go on ground, because we know most of the schools in this country are private schools, and these are people that aim at maximizing profits. So as long as I reduce my expenditure, then that has a reflection on my profits. So what happens? These are not being followed. And also the inspectors, we do not see them.
Now, what you're saying is that even what you're saying to do now, send them back home, you're simply acting on a panic button.
Send them for 14 days, then they...
Let's be honest. Have we solved what is the real problem? This is what I'm saying.
We failed to implement the SOPs
real
effectively.
Problem? You know, we must tire from only dealing with symptoms. And this is to all stakeholders in the various sectors of this country. When you go to industries today, go to the park, look at taxis. You will talk about schools today, but look at the taxis. They're supposed to carry 2 people per, how many are they carrying? You see boda people carrying 3 people. Standards. Every system works with standards. These things, you're going to send back kids at home after 2 weeks. What is the intention in that? But are you sending them back to be tested, to isolate, or to pick more corona from the communities and bring it to school? This, because of a standard way of doing things, we are gambling.
I love the word you've used, gambling, which I can't deny, because what actually happens is when safeguards are put in place and safeguards are not implemented, then what happens, it becomes a gambling situation. But Felix, I also want to look at it this way. We have a government that regulates, comes up with laws to be followed to guard against COVID-19. But then we also have schools, we have the parents. Let's take something that is very obvious that one would think under COVID-19 is the issue of masks. One time, government pledged to deliver masks. They did what they could do maybe and ended at that. You go to schools where parents, a mask could be 1,000, but in UP schools, some schools away from Kampala, you find that even a parent getting a mask is a challenge. You go to requirements like sanitizers, you go to requirements like water bills. We've not seen that wholesome approach that, okay, how do we reduce burdens? Parents will tell you we are choking on school, a balance to ensure that this environment where necessities must be available are available.
I think there's a lot of dishonesty, Robert, a lot of dishonesty, and both in terms of government and the schools, first and foremost. There's a lot of lack of accountability in terms of schools and government as the major stakeholders. And there's lack of the three. If government promised masks, you know, government is equally struggling. But also, we must find a way forward. In as much as, but there must be a way forward. What is the way forward? If you want to open up schools, do you put that on schools? That can schools avail a mask as a gear? That is possible. Now, you can go into a transaction with schools and for private schools, for example, which are, by the way, the majority schools. You tell them we need ABCD, but we are going to help you on this side also. Let's talk about water bills. start talking about these visions you're talking about, Manyanga 2040, 20 what. The only reason why you discuss these visions is because you have hope in these kids. There is no way you're going to discuss Uganda's future schools. That's the gist, Chechinyusi. Now, how do we help them? Imagine the kind of exams these people now did in COVID. Here. Now, how do we help them? Imagine the kind of exams these people now did in COVID. We must look at education as a priority sector in this country. Now, once we appreciate that it's a priority sector in the country, we'll be able to give the relevant or necessitated needs. One, quality education. Now, in terms of COVID-19, how do you guarantee quality education?
Seems more compromised this time around.
That's the thing.
Because you have a school calendar that was issued, maybe we'll talk about that briefly, but then also you also see you have exams, so quality is compromised.
First, now talk quality. You see, but quality can be also maintained in times like this. That's why like a modeled, well-modeled curriculum wouldn't be struggling. But talk about the curriculum in terms of COVID. And by the way, this is something that should steer minds in the ministries. Yes. How do we realign our curriculum to fit into changing times? We have been with COVID. It's coming now to almost 2 years. Haven't we learned anything? Should we be still...
That one was online learning?
Online learning. First of all, when you bring that into force or in play, there are things that you're going to deal with. That for you to start online, you must have an electronic gadget. In terms of an Android iPhone, rather an Android phone or an iPhone for that matter, that is one. Or that's one. Now, that would mean that a student would need a minimum of at least 150 in this country to own one. A lousiest one, 150. That's one. Secondly, you need what we call internet connection. Internet connection. There's a time the former Minister of ICT talked about having free internet in Kampala. What and what. I don't know where that ended, but that's what about having free internet in Kampala. What and what. I don't know where that ended, but that's for him to deal with. Internet connection that is useful, and I put that word purposely, useful. You see, internet can be there where you load maybe a video and it will take you 3 days waiting for it to, and you know, so useful. That at least on a daily for classes and what and all that, you need a minimum of at least 10,000 shillings. A minimum for a day if you're going to attend maybe 2 classes. So you must
also have available, affordable internet.
That is another one. But remember, we don't have policy. We don't have any policy on the internet in this country.
Service providers determine
now,
when.
There is what we call time. Allocation of time. If all of you, even our viewers, you've been in schools, you know the mode of studying. Away from the student, that is what the student needs. What does the teacher or the tutor or the lecturer need? The system of teaching in this country, for some of you who have been to universities who are tutors or teachers, you've never been taught to teach electronically. And I stand to be corrected. Which university has taught their tutors or teachers to teach electronically?
So it's
now, it is not a matter, it is not enough for you to be teacher Kirabo of SST.
You may be speaking to yourself.
To teach electronically. The qualification of teaching is not being a teacher. These things are different. You're used to chalk, you draw the cloud, then rain dropping,
then move around, monitor your students.
Yes. Why
are they attending? Are they all that?
The mode of education in this country has not been prepared for that kind